You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's a little bit after 9 p.m. Where else you going to be as a Steelers fan? I mean, there's not really anywhere else to go right now. And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich. Big Bro Scho. How does it go?
Where else could you go? Right now, I'm thinking I could go someplace warmer. That's one thing I can tell you right now.
I don't know. I could go to bed right now. I'll be honest with you. I'm wondering if I'm a little bit under the weather because my youngest child is very much under the weather. So it's one of those things, when your kid's sick, you're like, well, are you feeling it a little bit, but you've just had it enough before that it's not affected you as much? Because I've just been tired for 2 days, but I've just been tired of everything. It's cold. It's January. The holiday season is over, which gets depressing. The Steelers season is over, which is depressing. The long off season has begun, which might be even more depressing. And just to rub it in a little bit more, I was considering bringing up a mock draft just for
no,
because tis the season of mock drafts. Honestly, I've not looked at one yet. I know I'm going to have to get back to the article, but I'm not looking yet.
For the record, for everybody out there, Dave texted me today and said, what did I want to do for the show tonight? And I said, I'm up for anything as long as we stay off that one dreaded topic for this time of year, mock drafts.
So it's funny because, like Wes says, he says, Dave, I'm not that depressed our season's over. I am. The Steelers could go 3-14. And I'm still going to watch every game because I love football and I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. Therefore, I love Pittsburgh Steelers football above everything else, even when it's not the greatest I mean, my goodness, I was raised on Mark Malone and Bubby Brister. That's when I fell in love with the Steelers, and there wasn't anything to fall in love with. I'm used to that. Therefore, I'm just like, the fact that we don't have any Steelers football at all, was it frustrating? Yes. But I'd still rather have frustrating Steelers football than no Steelers football at all. Remember that. Come, I don't know, March can be exciting because of free agency, and April can be exciting because of the draft. And, I mean, we'll get there eventually. To me, I'll say remember that at the end of February.
Hold on. I'm going to bring it back up just again that Wes said that, Wes, I think you can't.
Oh, wait, we got to read it for our audio, folks.
Sorry. So when he says, Dave, I'm not that depressed that our season is over.
This season is over. I understand what he's saying there.
So let me rephrase it. We can be depressed that the season's over, but still have an understanding as to why it's over.
Yes, exactly. It's a big conglomeration of things. So Wes, you're not wrong.
And I'm not saying the Steelers season shouldn't be over.
Yeah.
But I'm still depressed that it's over.
Yeah, and here's the Coach Tomlin had his press conference today. I'm not going to sit here and go over a bunch of news with it. We'll probably bring things up as they become relevant. But like Coach Tomlin, he admitted, he's like, it sucks to be standing here in front of you like this today. Exactly the same spot that we were a year ago. I mean, 10-7, losing the first round. So, yeah, and it is. It's exactly the same. And what Coach Tomlin said, he's like, the biggest disappointment was I thought this group he basically said, I thought this group was better than that. That he thought that it was going to be more. I mean, think about it. There is an elite level in the AFC right now. To me, there are 3 teams in that elite level. In the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. You can put them in any order that you want.
Yeah.
There are 4 teams left in the AFC. Now, The Houston Texans are trying to show that they belong in that level. Good for them that they have the opportunity. Or they're saying that level should be expanded to 4 teams. They didn't have the strongest finish to their season, but my goodness, did their defense show up this past weekend?
Yes,
because I kept wanting to tweet, this is what it looks like for defense to win a game, when that was going on. So good for them. But the problem is, if the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to win one more game this past season, they're the ones going to Houston, and they're the ones that can show that they're the 4th team without having to beat one of the other 3. They could have showed that they were in that consideration without having to take on one of those other 3 to get the monkey off their back of winning a game in the playoffs. But you know what? They came up a game short in the regular season. Therefore, they didn't even have that opportunity. And we'll talk about the game because you and I haven't talked since the game. So we're going to talk some about the game, but I don't know if we'll over dwell on the game. But obviously, just like every off to set up our title, like every off season, this is not going to be the same team that takes the field in the fall. It's not. There are always changes. You add players via the draft. You add players via free agency. You lose players via free agency. You lose players because they're not good enough to be on an NFL roster anymore. My goodness, the Steelers lost tons of those last year, if you know what I'm talking about. Number of players that they had on the roster that didn't play in the NFL this year. So there's going to be change. But now if you're going to get better, you could just say, burn it all down and start over and everything. But you got to get the right change. Do you think it's important to find the right change?
Yeah, but you can think you found the right change all you want. See, when the change happens, you can think it's right. But we won't know until this time next year whether or not it was.
And we're, you know what, we're saying the exact same thing last year. But let's kind of recap. They changed a lot from last year to this year.
Yes, they did.
They did.
Yes, they did.
They decided we have a chance to do in what, in our eyes, we believe is an upgrade to the quarterback position. They did that. The quarterback that they had wasn't up to the competition or was put out by teammates wanting there to be a competition so much that he has to go out, and the Steelers obliged. So, and now the Steelers only have one quarterback under contract, and that's because they signed 17 futures players today, and one of them was a quarterback. That's the only one they have under roster. So bottom line is there was change last year. You can look for other change this year, but change just for the sake of changing doesn't breed success necessarily. You have to have the right changes in order to do that. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, because actually, if you really just stop and think for a second about what Coach Tomlin said in the press conference today was, you think about it. They made a lot of change, right?
Yeah. But
that change just brought him right back to the same exact spot as a year ago.
And you could tell that he is acknowledges that.
Yeah. So it's like, so we made the changes made what we thought were some good changes, and if you really think about it, yes, there were some good changes, and it changed the team in certain aspects, but the team ended up changing in other aspects, and when it all balanced out, what did you end up with? Pretty much the same exact thing.
Pretty much the same exact thing.
Yeah, not the same exact thing, but the same exact result. Let me put it that way.
Yep.
Same exact results.
Yep. And I mean, so many people put so much weight on that 3-game losing streak. And honestly, the 5-game losing streak. But at the time, it was a 3-game losing streak. Because you know what? I've said it a bunch of times. I had no problem with that 3-game losing streak. I wish they would have been more competitive in those 3 games. But those were I'll say it again. If you just take individual games, regardless of how they fell on the schedule, just the day of the week, everything else, not that these were 3 in a row, but if you were to pick 3 games out of the Steelers schedule that was going to be that were going to be the toughest, I would have said in Philly against the Super Bowl champs and against whichever team ends up being the best team in the AFC North in their house, which happened to be this year at the Ravens, which is kind of what I expected. Yeah, those would be the 3 hardest games that they have. To me, what changed everything is when they lost the 4th one.
Yes.
Granted, they only lost it by 2 points, but they really needed that win.
But again, believe it or not, I'm like you, Dave. That my bigger issue wasn't so much the losses, because the Steelers, they'd secured their place in the playoffs. What bothered me more was the way they were playing and the way they were losing.
Yeah.
Not that they were losing. The way they were losing that caused me more concern and made it very difficult for me to pick the Steelers in games.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I didn't any of those last except for the game against Cincinnati because I was going.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the game that I thought they're going to show, hey, that, we might not have been right there ready for those 3 teams in that stretch. But it was almost like it was, well, if you weren't ready for them, can you really beat anybody? Because people were like, oh, the familiarity of going to Baltimore and everything else. I'm like, I would have much rather had the unknown in Houston of 2 teams that didn't play each other this season just to see, because it would have been good. I don't know if they'd have won. Some people say, oh, they would have got crushed. I don't know. I do find it interesting when you hear about Patrick Queen having the flu and having to get 4 bags of, fluids before the game. That was crazy. And it was sad to see so little fight, especially in the defense. And I'm not making excuses, but I want to know why. I would love to know why. I want to know, because there's a bunch of theories as to why there was no fight. Or so little fight, maybe I should say, in that defense.
Yeah.
Was the sickness going around and they were fighting through it? That would make me feel better, but I'm not trying to seek comfort right now. Was it that there was too much infighting? I'm wondering, I'll be honest with you. You think the problem, you think some of the defenders aren't big fans of Terrell Austin? You also think that some of the defenders aren't very big fans of Minkah Fitzpatrick? Because I'll be honest with you, it felt like the reason the Steelers hired Terrell Austin as their defensive coordinator was because that's when Minkah Fitzpatrick was coming up for a contract extension, and he talked about how much he loved Coach Austin. I mean, you could throw out all kinds of different, but we're not going to really know. I wish we did. No. I wish we knew what happened, because I know the offense wasn't good enough. The offense needs to score more points. You can't get shut out for the entire first half and think that you're still going to have a shot. But it just felt like even when the offense got them back into it, that the defense didn't have a lot of fight. Do you have something you want to say about that before I get into another crazy theory I have?
I do, because honestly, Coach KT Smith's breakdown of the 4-play drive by the Ravens and the lack of defense in that 4-play drive and the lack of effort in that defense. No. By the way,
the last 3 plays of the 4-play drive.
Correct. Yes,
the last sack and then just.
Well, that's, believe it or not, it's you get the sack on first down, and that's what makes it then even worse, as he said, because at that point you're 2nd and 20, and you should be guys flying all over the place and making plays, and you very next play give up 21 yards. It was tough, and as you watched those 4 plays, and you were just like, really? Come on, defense. The offense just scored a touchdown. Do your part and let them try to, and give the offense a chance to knock it back to 1 score, and instead you look like a wet paper bag.
Yeah.
And actually that would be kind of demeaning to the wet paper bag to say that.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. A lot of the defense to me was taken there. The other thing was this. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll let you shift gears and go to something else because then I'll go to mine next. So go ahead.
Okay.
I'll let you shift to what you're wanting to shift to.
All right. Well, there was something that frustrated me to no end in that game. And I'm starting to wonder if it really was a calling out point and ultimately a breaking point, a turning point. The Steelers were down 14-0.
Good. This is where I was going.
They just punted the ball back to Baltimore. The ball, it was deep in their own. Was it at the 10? Something like 10. So it was somewhere deep. Okay. Maybe, yeah, because it was the 10. Because I remember the Ravens ran the ball. The Ravens ran the ball again.
No,
and the
hold on.
Steelers called.
The Ravens ran the ball on first down.
Yes.
Waited, snapped the ball with 2 seconds left on the play clock on second down.
Yep.
To get it to 3rd down and 3.
Third and two from the 18. Yep.
3rd and 3 from the 17. I'm looking at it right now.
That I was looking at it too, and it said 3rd and 2 from the 18.
Well,
must be. Where are you looking?
ESPN.
Oh, I'm looking at the Steelers media site.
Okay.
I'm going back to that play right now. Well, at least, yeah.
Either way, the Steelers called timeout, and I said to Kyle, who left at halftime, I said, because I was like, the Ravens seem content to just hit the half. I think the Steelers should just do that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the half and regroup. They called that timeout. I said, watch, now the Ravens are going to score points.
That's exactly what I said. I think I put it on Twixter is what I did, or said it in the game day thread on the website, which, believe it or not, man, our game day threads at steelcurrentnetwork.com, they are not. I tell everyone, come enjoy them, but we have a good group that's not toxic, and I don't want too many other people. I don't want someone to come in and ruin it. Come on in. Don't ruin it. If you're looking for a nice, non-toxic place to chat during the games, you should talk.
Just talking football.
It's not that people don't complain, but there's negativity, there's positivity, but it's not a lot of. There's not profanity. It's not ridiculous takes of wanting everyone fired and everyone benched. It's real level-headed discussion. Not a ton of it, but it's there. It's good. But yeah, here on the Steelers media site, they had it as 3rd and 2 at the 18. So it was probably closer to about 2.5.
Yep.
Okay. I had a problem with that instantly because I'm like, my goodness. I said, I didn't like it because they had just done 3 yards and 5 yards. What makes you think you're going to stop them for 2 yards? They had already had a drive of 13 runs. Okay. 13 straight runs.
Yep.
To score. Okay. I think I'm trying to look. I don't think there was a single. There's one play. It was a Lamar Jackson drop back to pass, scrambled, and only got a yard. Okay. Derrick Henry on the first play of that drive only got a yard. Other than that, it was 2 yards or more every time. The Steelers weren't holding them for 2 yards. And I was frustrated. I said, the Steelers, rather than get the ball back with a chance to score, might have just given themselves an opportunity to go down 17 or 21. And that was frustrating.
Yep.
But you call a timeout there. Now, this is something I got in my mind. Imagine this. Imagine they call a timeout. Imagine the defense is there. They're at the sidelines or whatever. Coach Tomlin calls the defense together and he wants to talk to them. If he didn't, he should have. And said, I used that timeout right there because I believe in you all. This is your moment. Get this stop. Get off the field. Get us this chance to get some points before the half. And we'll get to the locker room and we'll turn this thing around. One play right here, right now. We need it from you all. Okay? Now, if he didn't say that, I think that was a missed opportunity. If you just take the time out and be like, oh, you're just going to go. Okay. So I get that. But if he did that and he gave that speech and they gave up the 9-yard reception, I just see him. I could see that was a tipping point of just kind of being like, well, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
That was a huge play in that game. So didn't like the decision. Would have loved to have just gone in down 14-0. Just imagine how that changes stuff in the second half if you just run that out and then the second half's playing out the way it did. But
would you have rather, I understand you're like, let's take the chance and get the points, okay? But honestly, the Steelers there, the best that was going to be was go into the locker room 14-3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your options were to go into the locker room at say 14-3, 14-0,
mm-hmm.
or
worse,
or worse, and it ended up being worse.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I was just wanting them to get to the locker room, and when they called that timeout, I was not a happy camper.
Yeah. I mean, if they would have made that one stop right there, where that's saying, I believe you will get this stop. So honestly, just imagine how Steelers fans might have reacted if they didn't call the timeout and time runs down and they just let it basically, on 3rd and 2. I mean, that would have run it down, take 40 seconds. It would have been off 30 seconds. Maybe the Ravens would have then tried to then start to really take a shot with 30 seconds left. But if they did, they were probably only going to get maybe a field goal. And here's the other thing. When they got that touchdown, how close were they to getting a sack? If they get a sack they get no points. That'd have been huge. Sorry.
They would have been under 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Under 30 seconds if they just waited and run that third down play. Well, even if Baltimore converts that third down play, they're probably not going anywhere and not trying to get any points. It was that the first half had been so terrible. Mm-hmm. And what made you think the offense could have even moved the ball enough there at the end of the half to even get a field goal? Right, they hadn't crossed midfield. They'd had 59 total yards.
Yeah. Well, 60. Then they took a knee for one to make it 59.
Yeah. They'd had 60 yards total. It's like everything was against you there. They should have, to me, they should have just hit the locker room.
Yeah.
But
I mean, so what they do, they get the 9 yards. Then first down, they get 25. First down, they get 4. Second down, they get 20. First down, they get 19. Then they're first and goal at 5. They spike the ball on first down, and then get their touchdown on the. I mean, my goodness, it just seemed like too many times the Steelers got hands on Lamar, but just couldn't get it done. And that was a play that I thought, my goodness, if they could have got him on the ground, I mean, they couldn't have lined up and spiked it in time. It would have been like last year when the Ravens at the end of the first half were ready to score and they thought they drew the Steelers offside, and instead they snapped the ball on 4th down, didn't convert, and didn't get any points. If they'd have been down there ready to go and the Steelers could have had a sack to keep them from scoring it all, that would have been really, really big. But ifs and buts. Instead, the Steelers, their season's done. It is. And honestly, Coach Tomlin said it well today. He says they were the better team. And it what was his exact quote? Hold on. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Because they had it. Okay. They were the better team, and it's not comfortable to say that, but it's true. That's what he said. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish there were more answers. Hey, we got a super chat.
Yep.
Let's get to it. Steel Dog 88 dropping us $2 into the tip jar. Thank you very much. He said, "Are you surprised Beanie Bishop wasn't used again?" Honestly, you want to know the truth? If this was really about the run game, I'm a little bit surprised it was Beanie Bishop and there was so much Cam Sutton. Let's go ahead and talk about this now because someone else brought it up there because
Yep.
that's a great question. But another way to look at that is I was just really surprised about the inactive list. The Steelers valuing so much in special teams that they left pieces that could have helped them in the game on the sidelines in street clothes.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to use Beanie Bishop, I mean, I'm trying to look back at it and figure out exactly. I think what was it, like 6 snaps, something like that. I mean, according, sorry, I'm on offense instead of defense. According to PFF, his snap count was where is he? I just saw his name and then I lost it. 1? Did he really just have 1 snap in that game?
Probably.
If you're only going to have Beanie Bishop for 1 snap, why not try to incorporate Corey Trice into your secondary, who might be your best run tackling and run stopping cornerback? Instead, he's inactive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought the inactive list was, but again, what we also don't know about the inactive list and what we don't know about maybe Beanie Bishop not being out there is, was there sickness?
What kind of, yeah, we knew Cam was sick. We knew Boz was sick. We found out afterwards Queen was sick. Who all was sick? You know, no excuses. That's probably why they don't want to say it. So I get that. But yeah, Corey Trice, that one didn't make sense.
Was Corey Trice sick to the point he wasn't going to play?
No. I mean, I'm just assuming that people were healthy. That one didn't make sense. Preston Smith didn't make sense. But yet you have to have both Mark Robinson and Tyler Matakevich for special teams when neither one of them ever play on defense. I think Mark Robinson had 8 or 10 snaps on defense all season, and Matakevich had none. But those guys have to get helmets for special. Michael Pruitt, he's not even doing anything in special teams. But you got to have a 4th tight end to go out there for 10 snaps. I didn't get that. I really didn't.
Yeah, you know what? I probably had a lot more questions on personnel usage and things like that this year than I've had in a while because it just seemed like certain things were being done that.
Yeah. I mean, we don't get to see everything in practice.
Correct. We don't know. We don't have all the info, but it just seemed off a little bit.
Okay. Corey Trice has to come in on Christmas Day and play, and was the best player in the secondary against the Chiefs. Okay? Then he starts against the Bengals, and they line him up on Jamar Chase. They have him on Jamar Chase. And granted, you're going to get beat some with Jamar Chase. The touchdown was where he was obviously playing the outside of him turning to the corner because he expected help on the inside, and there was none. You could tell by the way he was playing it that that's what was going on because he really was on an island out there. And even though he was like, oh, yeah, he did all right. So they trust him enough to start him and line him up against the best wide receiver in the NFL one game and don't even give him a helmet in the next. That just didn't make sense.
Right. It just, like I told you, that it was off. Just things that done.
Here's another one. Mike Williams should have been out there running go routes all night. He wasn't out there on the 4th and 15? It was Van Jefferson. I mean, you're going to, granted, I don't know why you're throwing your jump ball to the 5'9" guy in triple coverage. But, to me, you put Pickens out there, you run Calvin Austin in the middle of the field, you put Mike Williams at the other side, and he should be the guy that you could get one-on-one, and you could throw him a jump ball. But he wasn't even out there. Wasn't even out there. Why did you trade for him if you just weren't I mean, I understand sometimes players aren't ready. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, Roman Wilson, why aren't they bringing him back? If he's not ready as a rookie, I get it. But it just seems like, I mean, Mike Tomlin just said, keep watching about Mike Williams a couple weeks ago. Well, we can't keep watching, coach. You're done, and you really never used him. So,
Yeah.
those things are frustrating. Now, that's what we're talking. I mean, we're kind of talking about the last game, someone with determining some of the right changes for the Steelers. We're going to dive into that a little bit more here. You're ready to take a break?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break. We'll be back and get into this a little bit more right after this.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax.
All right, Rich, can we really relax and not worry? I don't think that's where we are right now, is it?
Sure it is, because we got time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
Well-
the thing, is we got there's time.
Yeah.
Because we won't see the Steelers
Yeah.
lined up against another team for a meaningful football game for quite a while.
Yep. But here's something that's interesting. You do know that we were just talking about Mike Williams, and they should have had him out there a little bit more and everything else. He had the highest offensive PFF grade for the Steelers.
I saw that.
You know, he didn't even have one of the touchdowns. He had a nice catch. You know, but you know, the week before against Cincinnati, he was only used on pass plays. No, they didn't run it very much. And no, that's wrong. They didn't run very much against Baltimore. They tried to run it a bunch against Cincinnati, but he just wasn't out there. I'm like, if you're worried about, I mean, that was the second time this season he was only on the field for pass plays. Okay, maybe you want to not just have him out there every time you're going to pass it and have it be obvious you're going to pass it. But on 4th and 15, that's the one that just really does baffle me. I don't understand that one. But there's plenty of things to, when they don't work, to talk about. So it's funny. Remix says this. He's like, this team is not bad. Did you see the ESPN predictions before the season? Yeah, I mean, that is something to talk about. We had some confidence because we felt that the Steelers were better because they had a better quarterback situation, right? How many people predicted this team to be so much worse?
A lot. But again, I think I brought this up last week before we even went into the game this past weekend. Was what I was seeing, though, was a downward trend in the play.
Yeah.
And again, like, I would have been okay with the Steelers, you know, the Steelers could have still been finished playing football at the same exact time.
Yeah.
And I could feel a lot different about it if I felt the play down the stretch matched what we had been seeing for the play at other times of the year.
Yes.
But the downward trend in play
Yeah.
is infuriating.
Yes. That's the thing. Is that Steelers fans know what it's like to be on the rise. It's called 2005. Now, granted, that's almost 20 years ago now, and we have fans that might not have been around for 2005. But those of us that have been around for a long time,
it was glorious.
yeah, they had to win basically almost every game in order to get in the playoffs. They get in as the 6th seed, they just roll. I mean, first they do is they roll up on Carson Palmer's knee. That changed that. Then all of a sudden you're like, the Colts have been resting everyone for a month. Maybe we can jump out on them to start this game. And they did. And they held on. And by that time I was like, there's no one beating this team. They're going to knock the Colts out that were that good that year? No one's beating this team. And I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit of things going your way. A little bit of luck. I mean, Vander Jagoff, shanking that that field goal at the end of the game to not go to overtime. I mean, sometimes things just have to go your way in that way, in that regard.
Even before that, the fact, Ben with the tackle on Nick Harper was
Yeah, because Jerome never fumbles. But honestly, the thing that could have been the most frustrating in that game was the obvious Troy Polamalu interception. He catches the ball, rolls over. If he stays on the ground, it's an interception. He goes to get up, and his knee knocks the ball out of his hand, and he jumps back on it. And they tried to say that was no catch. He caught it, went to the ground, got up from the ground, and then lost it, and they called that no catch, which was honestly why they didn't want that game getting out of hand. That's just me. So, but we brought up 2005 but that was a team on the rise, and things were going their way, but they didn't have to. This team, there was just such a small margin for error at the end of the season. It just felt like last year when the Steelers' offense was so bad that they had no margin for error. They had to never turn the ball over. Not, a drop would just kill everything. A penalty, and they were done. The offense was so frail. Now, was the offense as frail as the year before? No. But when you started to see that fragility come into play a little bit, it just brought back the flashbacks of how bad it was. So it just felt that way because it hadn't been that long since we'd seen it.
Was it you, Brian, or Jeff? Somebody, one of you, I was thinking was on the preview or somewhere, was talking about, hey, the Steelers, they could win this game. The Steelers, to win this game, they need, no turnovers, create turnovers, and you get on, and I'm like, okay, so they need, it was like 5 or 6 things. You're saying the Steelers need all of these things to win.
That tells you they're just not good enough.
That's correct.
Yeah, and they're not. That's what the fans, I don't think, really get some of it.
Because if you need all those things to be able to win, the chances of getting all of that are small. The probabilities are small.
And they did get those earlier in the season. And that's something to remember. I said this as a comment on the Q&A Sunday night with Bad. I'm like, early in the season, the Steelers defense was playing more like they should, more on level, and the offense was overperforming what they really were. Because I keep saying this, look at the Steelers offense. Look, maybe George Pickens would be the only player from the Steelers offense that would start on the Ravens. Maybe. I keep saying this, but you have to look at it. It's true. Their offense doesn't stack up to the very best teams in the NFL. It doesn't stack up to the Eagles. It doesn't stack up to the Ravens. It doesn't stack up. Well, I mean,
even to the Bengals.
Here or there, maybe against the Chiefs. What's up? The Bengals.
Even to the Bengals, who didn't make the playoffs.
It doesn't. Yeah. It just doesn't. You wouldn't take the Steelers players over players on those other teams. Okay? Maybe on a few of them, a few strengths for the Steelers would make their way in that could improve those other teams. But they don't. So, to me, earlier in the season, the offense was grossly overperforming. When they put up 44 points in the Bengals defense, that was a major overachievement from who they really were. Honestly, unfortunately, the 14 to 17 point range that we saw through most of those final 6 games was probably closer to what the offense really was. They were overperforming via scheme, via, the strength of the pack is the pack, mentality kind of thing. Not a lot of tape in black and gold with Russell Wilson. The more tape he put out there, the easier it was to figure out what to do to beat him. Things of that nature. Here's another one that goes along the same lines. Boy, was I dead wrong when I went on a Philadelphia sports podcast show and they said, oh, well, George Pickens. I said, well, George Pickens being gone isn't going to help the Steelers against the Eagles. But it could help the Steelers in the long run, because if they could figure out how things were without George Pickens, it could really help. You know what it seemed like? it seemed like all it did was show other teams what the Steelers could do without George Pickens, which is not very much, and then realize all you got to do is take that away. I think it actually hurt the Steelers trying to have an offense without George Pickens because it showed how much they depended on throwing him the moon ball and him making a great play. So that's not the way I thought it was going to be, but boy, that seems how it turned out. That by the end of the season, the offense was probably more on level of what they really were, and then the defense was underperforming. And I was ready for the defense to bounce back when people started to get healthy. And they honestly, I still think they had a bit of a bounce back against Cincinnati. That's why Baltimore was so disappointing.
Yeah.
So disappointing. Something from that game I want to point out to you. People were criticizing TJ Watt for guessing wrong and kept on tackling Derrick Henry when Lamar Jackson was keeping the ball. I know Mark Madden talked about that. It just goes to show that you've probably never put on a whistle before or even played the game at the high school level.
Yeah.
Because guess what?
Oh, it was obvious 5 plays into the game.
When the other team is running the option, players have specific responsibilities. Usually, the outside linebackers are responsible for quarterback. I mean, we would preach this when I was coaching. I remember hearing my high school coach constantly saying this, even though I wasn't one of the defenders he was saying it to. You have the pitch man, you have the quarterback. Because a lot of times when we're talking option, you're talking, in high school, you were talking about it wasn't the dial, it was the quarterback around the end. Does he pitch it? Does he keep it? Things like that. In all those things, even if it's handed off down the middle, so-and-so's got running back, so-and-so's got the quarterback if he keeps it. And that usually had been the outside linebackers, and that's why they would constantly hit Lamar if he kept the ball. It seemed like the Steelers, in an attempt to try to change things up and do it differently and have more success than they did the last time they played Baltimore, they had their outside linebackers responsible for running back, and somebody else was going to be on the outside for Lamar. And guess what? It did not work. It didn't mean that the guys were doing the wrong thing. It meant that it didn't work.
Yeah, and I think it was different things in different calls, because to me, I thought I saw a couple different plays. Saw a couple plays where it looked like it was inside linebackers, either Queen or Wilson, looping around, coming around and filling the gap at Lamar. A couple times it was Minkah, and Minkah, I don't know what he was the other day.
Yeah.
But he sure as heck wasn't a football player.
I'm hoping he was sick or else, because if he's not sick, he's done. Because Minkah Fitzpatrick in that game, you know what he reminded me of? The last time the Steelers played the Ravens in the playoffs. Remember the last time the Steelers played the Ravens in the playoffs? It was in Pittsburgh, and I was there. It was in 2014, right? It's been that long. I'm not missing one in between. There might have been, if there was one in between, I'm sorry I messed that up. But I'm pretty sure it was the last time the Steelers played the Ravens in the playoffs. Whose last game was that? The last game of the great Troy Polamalu. And I was at that game, and I watched Troy Polamalu, who had missed a bunch of games with injury, coming back, and I saw him out there, and I said to I guess he's our nephew-in-law, I guess the way to say it, our niece's husband that went to the game, I took to the game, and I said, Troy's just out there. If Troy can't beat Troy, they're better off having somebody else. Because he couldn't do Troy. He wasn't doing Troy things. It was really sad to watch that game because you could just see he was done. No, I'm not saying Minkah's done, but that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
That's what that performance in the playoffs reminded me of. A safety that just didn't have it anymore. So, which was sad. So, yeah, but you're right. I don't know what Minka was doing. But I was just saying, if you're constantly seeing the outside linebackers tackling the running back when the quarterback's keeping the ball, it's not that they guessed wrong. It's that was their responsibility on that play call.
Yeah.
So you just got to remember that. So
you have to when you're playing a team, whether it's in the option like you were talking about facing in high school or the RPO. Again, we talk about everybody has a responsibility, everybody has a lane, everybody has a job to do. Are they doing it?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'd like to shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
To the offensive side of the football and some similar things.
Okay.
Because oh my goodness, the video of the run play where both tackles pull and go the opposite direction. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what is going on?
I know.
Like
I wanted to
Dave,
talk about that.
Dave, you want to
talk about determining the right changes.
I know, but Dave, you talk about Coach Tomlin likes to talk about junior varsity. Dave, that's something you might see on junior varsity high school football. It's just that. I mean,
I saw one of the beat reporters say something about this. They're like, "Oh, if it would have been the guards, look out." I've seen that before, where both guards thought they were supposed to pull for a trap, and you talk about a horrendous crash behind the center.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that when I played in a practice. I've seen that when I coached. That it's just like, you've got to know your plays. Now, this comes back to determining the right changes. And sometimes we as fans, we need to actually take it in, and you need to assess things for what they are, not for your agenda. You know what was so ridiculous?
What was so ridiculous?
The number of people, when that play got shared on social media, the number of comments that I saw that said, this shows nothing but lack of coaching.
No.
If there isn't a better example of you can coach so much and the players have to get it done, that's the gold standard, right? That play right there. You can do everything you can as a coach. And if you go out there and you call a play and the player doesn't even know what there's, I mean, I hate to call him out. It was obviously Broderick Jones that was wrong. And not only that, if you're going to pull the wrong way, if you're going to screw up,
go pancake somebody. That's right.
Yeah, he went about 50% in the completely wrong thing. If you're going to know, and I would say this to my players all the time. Remember, these were freshmen in high school that they couldn't remember a play to save their life. Some of them were really good. Some of them couldn't. I'm like, if you're going to be wrong all out. If you're going to go block the wrong guy, put him on the ground. At least put someone on the. If you block the wrong guy, then that's something we got to work on and fix. But
give us something to cheer about.
Yeah, it's paralysis through analysis. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do on this play. So there was times where you'd be guys, they weren't sure what to do. So you know what they do? They block nobody. That's what Broderick Jones did on that play. That looked like plays I've seen watching film of high school football, of average high school football teams. Okay, that's bad. That's not coaching, people. That's not coaching. So if you are going on and saying about how that's all about coaching, you obviously are only worried about criticizing coaches, because that was not what that was.
No.
Sorry. Back to you.
No, but if you wanted to know at times, you look at plays like that where it goes just so wrong, and how do you expect to do positive things when you got guys that are in the wrong places because they're not sure what the play is?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going to pull this up because of its ridiculousness. Dude has I think it was supposed to be no and clue in his lack of coaching. It is the coach's duty to have his players doing their job. These are professional players.
Yeah,
you are 20
freaking
weeks into this, 19 weeks into the season. If you don't know your plays, and honestly, the Steelers had no other option. I mean, my goodness, Dan Moore gets hurt in this game, and Calvin Anderson's out there. If you don't know your plays, then that's a problem. Now, might have been the only play he messed up all night for not knowing what he's supposed to do. So you don't want to, but it just looked really bad. But to say, oh, well, the coaches have to no, it's the player's responsibility to know what the play is. The coach is to present the play, call the play. Your job is to know what to do and do it. That's your job. That's your job.
we're sitting here, you're saying that, and then now, this is what I love too. People will turn around now and say that all we do then is slobber. No. We do not sit here and just slobber all over the coaches, say the coaches have no accountability. We've already talked some about where the coaches had accountability in this game and messed things up. All right. It's holding people accountable, whether they're player or coach, or as I love to say, or front office or ownership, or it's holding people accountable to the things they should be accountable for. Yeah. And for us as fans, it's making sure we get right who should be accountable for what. Yeah. Not knowing the play and pulling when you should not be pulling. That is not a coaching problem. I'm sure that they've been over and over and over those plays in practice. Yeah. At some point, the player has to step out, and when the play is called, know where to go.
And from somebody who called plays, granted on the high school level, if you run a play like that in practice and the player's constantly not doing it right, you know what you're going to do?
Not call it in the game.
Not call that play.
Yeah.
Or if you do, say, hey, or go over it with them and everything. So I bet you they've run that play how many times between practice and a game. And you should be able to trust if the guy's going to do it in practice, right, that when it comes time in the game, that's just a lack of mental focus in the huddle to take in the play, know your responsibility, get to the line, and know what to do. So, yeah. So to me, that's part of it. Say that when we say determining the right changes for the Steelers, part of that's finding the right problems.
Correct.
And that's what we're talking about. You've got to identify the right problems. And there's so much information that we don't have, but we've still got to look at it. I said this on the postgame show, Rich. I'm like, if the Steelers were a head coach away from being a Super Bowl winner, I would lead the charge for the Steelers having to move on from their head coach. But that's not their problem. Does the head coach need to do some things differently? Absolutely. Should we have faith that this head coach is going to I'm not even going to say his quote, but take care of business in December and roll on to there? We do not. That's not what the data tells us. But at the same time, when we determine the right changes, we also have to look at reality. If you were to tell me tomorrow that Mike Tomlin changed his mind and he's like, you know what, it's time for a change, I want to step away for a little bit, I would not be upset. I would be excited about what would be on the horizon for the Steelers. But I am not sitting here talking about if you want to sit here and say that that's what the Steelers need to do, then you're going to be very disappointed because it's not what they're going to do.
Yeah, right. And
I'm saying you shouldn't be critical. But you can't have that expectation because you should just,
Right. So I'm going to go back. I don't remember. It was either Tyler W. or Wes or somebody way back at the very beginning in the live chat asked if, we had gotten our torches and pitchforks ready or whatever. Yeah. It's like, I'm not that. And I'm with you. It's like, I'm disappointed where the Steelers are. I'm disappointed that it seems like they've been stuck in the same type of thing over and over and over. Now, I still, when it comes to Coach Tomlin, I'm kind of like you. It's like we've got a lot more things to fix than just saying, oh, if we had a different head coach, we'd be there. No, that's not necessarily the case. But I'm also like you were saying, if Coach Tomlin was like, you know what, guys, I'm tired. I feel like I've been beating my head against the wall. It's not working for me. I got to step away. I'm not playing, we're the Steelers, the sky is falling type feeling either.
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, it's kind of like when I said it when Verge, who's here being a punk in the live chat tonight too. If you put out another repeat comment, I'm going to have to block you. Don't remember, that's always been the rule. You want to keep saying the same thing over and over, you're just going to get in timeout. But talking in October about the Steelers needing Mike Munchak. Mike Munchak is not an answer to the Steelers for 2024 in October. I mean, it's just, you want to talk about things that are going to make a difference, and you're like, it's, Rich, you know what would really make a difference with my family? If I just suddenly had $10 million. That would really change a lot with what's going on with me right now. Well, yeah, it could, but why don't you actually think of something that's realistic that could actually happen? Then now's the time to talk about those things. I've talked about, I would love to see the Steelers move on from Pat Meyer. Of any coach of anyone, that's the one, because his philosophy and offensive line is very different. I got on board when he came on to say, hey, this could really work. If it really works, you should see a better product on the field. You're not. Different isn't always bad, but different needs to be visible that it's working. And even after throwing a lot of draft capital the last couple of years, and you're like, oh, you got to give players time to develop. You know what? There are plenty of rookies that come into the NFL and have big years. It doesn't have to be that. To me, I don't like the philosophy. I would like to move on there. Boy, I mean, Munchak would be great. But the problem is, but I just don't know that that's what they're going to do. I think that's a more realistic change that you could see, but I don't know that we will. And I mean, we could sit here and continue to talk about, this team will never do anything under Mike Tomlin. The data shows you that they haven't been able to do anything in the playoffs.
Nope.
But at the same time, saying that's the only thing that's ever going to fix this team, and that's not what's happening, then you just kind of have to be done with it then, if that's your mindset. Or, all right, if they're doing that, what else are they doing to turn it around? If that's not what they're doing, I'm not saying that you're wrong for feeling that way. But when that doesn't come to fruition, there's got to be other answers of maybe what could be the right changes for the Steelers. It's not just that. You got to be ready for everything. So, and I have an article that I've had it for a couple of days. Then some other things have happened. Might see it tomorrow at steelcurtainnetwork.com. You also might see a new steelcurtainnetwork.com coming up really soon. We've been talking about it forever, so much so I got tired of it. But it was the whole idea of, should the way we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers change from an R to a were? Like, do you say the Pittsburgh Steelers are a legendary franchise, or the Pittsburgh Steelers were a legendary franchise? I mean, I know they went 20-some years in the middle where they didn't win any Super Bowls, and then they turned it around. But the biggest reason I don't know if we can keep saying the Steelers are is because the biggest thing that made the Steelers who they were isn't here anymore, and that's Dan Rooney. Steelers never scored a playoff point before he took over, and they've never won a playoff game since he unfortunately passed away.
Yep.
And people are like, oh, the Steelers only had 3 coaches in 50 years. If they moved on from Tomlin, you don't think they could find a good person? I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that was Dan that did all that. That was Dan that did this. And I don't think that that's beyond. Now, once again, you can acknowledge it, but you're not going to change ownership. Right?
Yep.
So as much as you can acknowledge that it was the greatness of Dan Rooney that meant so much to this, and that there could be a problem that they don't have Dan Rooney anymore, saying, well, that's the problem and that's it, isn't going to fix anything, because that's not something that's going to change. So my biggest thing with determining the right changes, it's not even what are those changes, is as much as you have to acknowledge changes that can and can't be made. Like, you can't just say, well, they have to draft a great quarterback this year. Even if they move to the top of the draft, I don't know that there is one.
Yeah.
They've got to sign a great quarterback in free agency. Don't know that they have one out there. That's why I like what Coach Tomlin said today. We've got to look at the quarterback position throughout with everything, not just our guys, to determine what's going to be best. And that's part of it. The draft sucks for quarterbacks this year. Free agency doesn't look like it's going to be a lot for quarterbacks this year.
Wrap it up, Dave.
I know.
Time
well, I
to
haven't.
wrap it up.
Yeah. We have I'm trying to find our other super chat.
Why don't you just do it this way?
Got it. I got it. Oh, and then you took it away. Kyle Smith.
I was taking the shortcut.
Thanks, Kyle. Says, I missed the show till now. Any thoughts on today's press conference? Sounded like a lot of hot air to me. I'm even less confident in Tom now. See, I feel the opposite.
Actually, I thought he actually said more this year than usual.
Yeah.
And I think we actually got more insight into his feelings or the coach's feelings on the team than you get from a lot of coaches at the end of the year. Honestly, you could take most coaches in the NFL and their end of season press conference. The cut and paste component could be the cut and paste component because they just basically regurgitate the same one every year. There were parts of Tomlin's that were the same, but he gave more information this year than usual. In my opinion, I felt I had better insight to some of his thoughts, not necessarily on specific players, but you could almost break it down into some position groups and things like that, that he gave a little more feeling about than normal.
Yeah.
So,
to me, another thing that he said in the press conference that I thought was kind of key was, talking about, he's like, and this is something that the fans think is so important. He's like, messaging is such a small component of everything. He's like, you want to talk about if the message is stale or anything? Messaging is so little. It's really about execution, and it's really about game plan. And honestly, the game plans have sucked. They have. But you want to know the truth? Look at take off your black and gold goggles for a little bit. There are 4 teams left in each conference. 4. The Steelers roster really better than any of those?
No. Not really.
No. I mean, honestly, I think Washington's overachieving with a new coach and a new quarterback and everything. I think they're doing great. I don't know that they have the strongest roster out there, but they're just a team that's believing in themselves, finding a way to win. And that's what we've gotten so much with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's only so much where you can continue to have an inferior roster and yet bring it together and overachieve. That can only get you so much. And the Steelers have been doing that for a long time. Honestly, they probably don't even have a winning roster, especially when you look at their offense for the last 3 years. So the right changes are go get you some people.
And that's what we're up against now. That's what it's time for.
And Wandering Warrior says our highest paid defense is often hot garbage. I think there's some pieces of that defense that's high paid that needs to be let go, and they need to start. Granted, other times you would have hope. I talked about this. I know we need to wrap it up, but we talked about. I brought this up in the Q&A again on Sunday night in the live chat that 10-7 and losing in the first round of the playoffs can be a good thing for a team on the rise, but that's not the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I mean, Denver finished 10-7 and got bounced out of the playoffs, but they're a team on the rise. They've got a rookie quarterback. They should feel good about that. The Steelers do have a very young offense. They had an old quarterback. That's why we don't feel good about it. It's the most important position in football You had young guys. You decided, hey, we're going to have old guys that we can that we think can get the job done better. The problem is when they don't. Russell Wilson is not a quarterback on the rise, and that's why the whole offense just feels blah. I'm hoping the offensive line can be on the rise and things like that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Dave, we're not doing any score predictions.
I know we're not doing a score. I have a final question, and I know we're really late. And that's because I just got on my soapbox for a long time.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I'll be talking to you about that afterwards because, I told you it would depend on you. And
Yep, it did depend on me. I forgot that I hadn't done a podcast since the post-game show. Here's my question for you, Rich. And this is going to be our big question. For those of you that are here that might not remember how it works, I'll ask this question. Don't put your answer in the live chat yet. We will bring up everyone's once I put the question out there, when I say to do it, and when I put it out there in words. But here's the question I'm going to ask you, Rich. I'm not asking for the name of a person. I'm asking you for a position. It could be a coaching position. It could be a player position. Where do you think the biggest change needs to occur with this team for 2025?
the biggest change or the
No
first,
names, just
the biggest change or the first change? Because see, there's different ways you could look at this. Okay, you could just say biggest overall, or you could be like, well,
most important. We'll say most
Okay.
important. Okay.
okay,
Does that sum up both? Does that sum it up better?
maybe.
Yep.
Because you have to realize that something that you don't see as the change initially, based on something else you do, as a team, may then necessitate it. Understand how I'm saying that it's like you think of it being the first big thing that you've got to do or address, and the biggest thing you end up doing or needing sometimes isn't the first. It could be down the line further. Man, if you ask me I don't even know if it's been just even changed, but the first thing that's got to be done and shored up is figuring out what you're going to do at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean that's number one, because offensively that guy pretty much gets the ball in his hand every play.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yeah, I agree. That would have been my answer. I know some people might go with coaches. Remember, you only get one. If you put multiple ones in there, I'm not going to bring it up, and you don't get to use names. You got to use positions. I'm going to say this. It's going to be more of a position group. I would have said quarterback. You need to get your offensive line going in the right direction with as much draft capital as you put in it.
yeah,
Okay?
yep,
That's what you got to do. To me, that I would say quarterback, but since you said it, I get to then have the second one. People were already jumping in. They're like, shoot, I hit it too soon. You ready? Now is when you can say it. Okay. The most important change. Some people I know some people are going to go with coaching. Some people are going to go with a position or a position group like I did. But obviously you've got to change something. Mr. Woodside, he's got it. He's like D-line. Okay. I can see that.
I can understand why you would say that. Yes.
Yeah. Jedi 417. Nice name, by the way. O-line coach. I'm okay with that. Kathy Ford says quarterback. Okay. I'm going to give this one because although it uses the thing, John Walter says a modern NFL offense. So in other words, the biggest change the most important change is offensive scheme. Okay.
Scheme and philosophy.
Okay. Scheme and philosophy. Okay, I'm okay with that. Steel Dog 88 says wide receiver coach. Okay. Mark Tobin says philosophy. I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. James Tresvant says left tackle. Okay. Doug P is something that I thought a number of people were going to say head coach. Okay. I'm just saying that, which is fine. I'm just saying if that's the most important change, you're probably going to be disappointed.
More than likely.
If you mean a different head coach, you're going to be disappointed. If you mean the head coach doing something different, we'll see. We haven't seen it, but we'll see if that's possible. Okay. Outside Steeler fan says DC, and I'm not reading the rest of it. Okay. Kyle Smith says not a group. He says attitude preparedness. Yeah, I'll take that answer. I'll take that answer.
Yeah, and actually, Kyle, I like the way you put that attitude and preparedness because that actually, it believe it or not, lays everything. That lays, yeah, that's everybody. That's players and coaches.
That's players, coaches. You can go front office as far as front office on that. It is. I love that answer, Kyle. I wish I would have thought of it first. Good job. Okay. Verge says better coaches. Stiller Nation says D-line. George T says O-line. Let's see. Tim Pratt says wide receiver. I thought that would be a common one too. That you need a full unit there. Okay. And that's all I'm seeing right now of stuff that fits into the category what we're looking for. Other than that, it's just people having good conversation in there. If you're not frustrated as a Steelers fan, I don't know what to say to you. I think we should all be frustrated with how this season finished up. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. But you can get frustrated and just offer no real solutions for what might be the right changes, or you could look at it as, let's see what these changes are. Okay. And like I said, if there was a change at as top as you can really make a change, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I've just kind of, do you feel the same way as I do? You just kind of realize it's not what's going to happen. The chances of that are so small, I shouldn't continue to dwell on.
No, but the one thing you should notice based on what we were getting for our answers up there,
Adam White said secondary. Okay,
is notice how many different answers we got. That in itself should tell people a lot about the Pittsburgh Steelers this past year. Because those things, everybody sees areas that need addressed and put them at the top of their list.
Mm-hmm.
How did this team even win 10 games?
Yeah.
If we need secondary, if we need quarterback, if we need D-line, if we need wide receivers, if we need
O-line development.
It's like, you know, and honestly, as I've sat here and read a lot of these, I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't envy Omar Khan right now.
Yeah,
because there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
So,
and see, like, here's a, not to pick on him again, but here's Verge says, can we get a new owner? That just goes to show not actually coming up with a viable solution, with a viable, you know, if the only thing that's going to make you happy is a new owner and a new head coach, you're probably not going to get either one of those. You're probably not. So you could be upset about those things, or you could just expect more. I expect more out of AR2, and I expect more out of Mike Tomlin. Give me more. If they're not going anywhere, give me more. Some people want to see Arthur Smith gone. I'm fine giving him another season, but I want to see more out of him. Okay.
It better be better. Like,
yeah.
What we got this year was not good enough.
Yeah.
If you stay and give us the same, we're going to run you out of town on a rail.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's going to be change. Whether that change comes from within in players and coaches that are already here, or if that change comes by bringing in different players and coaches.
Yeah.
But there better be some change.
There's going to be changes. There'll be changes at coaches. Might not be the changes people want to see, but there will be. There'll be changes in players. There'll be changes in the way that they do things. The question is, are they going to be the right changes? And we're not going to know that until probably right around this time next year. We all have an opinion, but ultimately and that's why we're going to tune in the offseason. And that's why we'll pay attention to free agency and the draft and see what's going on in OTAs and be ready for training camp and hopeful and tune into the games next year, because we want to get back to this point right here and have it be better. Think about how many times it's not. I mean, my goodness, look at the 49ers that made it to the big game last year, didn't win it. All you want to do is get back there to make it be different, and look at how they were nowhere close to it. So hopefully we're not sitting in that kind of situation. But if we are, then it's a whole kind of different change for the next time.
Yep.
With that, hey, we're going to continue to bring you all the podcasts. We're going to continue to have everything at Steel Curd Network. Big Bro, or the Scho Bro Show, will continue to run over constantly, and we'll continue to ask Rich for his final thoughts.
It's sad. There's still football this weekend, but there's no Steeler football this weekend, and that's sad. I haven't even decided yet if or what I will watch. I will say this: I did watch the Commanders play
that was the best game of the weekend. I mean,
by far, everything else was the best game of the weekend. Yeah. Actually, which actually is going to lead me to another closing thought. Okay, yeah. If you as down and everything as we are on the Steelers right now, and I think we have every right to be, take a look at the scores from the games this weekend.
Yeah,
the Steelers were the second closest game.
Oh, well, in score, it certainly didn't feel that way.
Didn't feel that way, but no. In score, it was the second closest,
which is
game.
Sad. Which is sad for the NFL has to see how much disparity there is between those few teams at the top.
Yeah, but
there's about 3 great teams in each conference. Yeah.
Yep. So, but I'll still be figuring out some football. I'm still trying to process and wrap my head around the fact that we're now into the off season for the Steelers. What all is going to go on? It's going to take me a week or two to kind of get my footing and figure out, okay, what kind of things are we going to be going through on this show over the next few months? Because I always enjoy just the structure of the season. That's the structure I like. The off season has structure to it as well, but it's just so different. It's almost like in my regular job. People always say to me, "Oh, like right now, oh, you work at college. You're between semesters. Oh, hey, you're getting a nice break." No, not really. My job actually sometimes is more busy right now without students than when they come back next week. But it's just a different kind of busy. It's like instead of working on these things, I'm working on these other things, and that's kind of how I feel about the Steelers between being in season and off season. We're still going to be busy. We're still going to be doing stuff, but it's just different stuff. And I enjoy the in season stuff so much. But, I will say this, we're what? 8 months, 8 months away from kickoff to the regular
season. Yeah. Just under 8.
Just under 8 months from that, and we'll fill that time and do all that. But when it really comes down to it, I'm looking forward to, just under 8 months from now. Can't wait.
You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.